thank you very much for attending and participating in this very, very interesting side event. Our side event this afternoon is going to focus on forest landscape restoration opportunities for young people. Don't worry, in the morning we already learned that we are all young at heart, especially you can't take this work forward if you are not young by heart. Restoration, it's a long-term process. It takes a heart. It takes to be young at heart to restore degraded landscapes. Allow me to ask the tech team to just put a movie on the screen for just a few minutes before we get into the event. Thank you.
Go back. It is finished here.
Okay. Kada rawan kayan muni da yawa. Jibi. Karfe 17 na dare. Wallahi. Sauri.
It takes a passion, it takes courage in different geographical contexts, in different challenges to do restoration, to engage people, to engage young children as you saw in this video. I would like to invite our first speaker who is going to give the opening remarks. And before that, my name is Charles Karangwa. I work for IUCN. And I'm going to be the moderator of the event tonight. And I would like to invite Mamadou Diakite. Mamadou Diakite is the team leader of Sustainable Land Water Management Program. Yes, a round of applause. Thank you very much. And he's also hosting the Secretariat of AFR100. Mamadou, the floor is yours.
Yes, now. Oh, merci, Charles. So I was given the task to open this this side event, and I'm already very impressed by the size. And I know that we are very many, like Ugandan friends will say, but the room is not showing. So I would like, on behalf of Dr. Mayaki, the CEO of NEPAD, and also all the partners of this event, to thank you and for this opportunity to speak about this very critical topic of the youth movement in the AFR100, in the FLR movement in Africa. And we know that Africa is the youngest continent in terms of population, and that this really ensure the future in terms of whatever situation we are living now. We have a lot of hopes because of the young population we have, and that could be really the driving force for the development of Africa. And if we read or interpret or take the restoration movement as contributing to the development of the continent and of the world, we will see the importance of young people in this movement. So to just give you very quick figures, we have now in the AFR100 initiative, for which we are here today, we have 27 African countries that have officially joined the movement, that have ratified their participation, which represent more than 100 million of hectares of land to be, and forest to be restored by 2030. We have reached the number of 110 million hectares of land, which is a huge task to do, and some say a very over-ambitious work. And of course, by 2030, and we know that we don't know each of us where we will be in 2030, but we know that if we don't involve our youth, young people from Africa and from anywhere else in the world to come and contribute to restore this 110 million hectare and counting, it won't be possible. So we know also that there are young people that will come and make interventions here, who are not waiting for us, for all the people to take action on their own at a very humble level. To start with, we see young people taking initiative at the county level, even in the beginning without official support, that are having results and impact. And I hope that this kind of initiative, this kind of gathering will multiply, will give more reasons, more motivation for young Africans and beyond, whoever is ready to come and work in Africa, to invest and to take action, to plant trees, to plant trees for restoration or for food, is very welcome. So on that note, I would like to thank you, and I'm sure that we will get out of this event with a lot of good ideas and networking, and also more youth to be involved. Thank you very much.
A round of applause to you. Thank you very much, Mamadou. Thank you for the remarks. And just to say that we were talking about 110 million, and I received a very interesting another update last night that Zimbabwe decided to put 1.2 million hectares as a commitment of restoration. So the numbers are increasing, and the big question is, yes, commitments, but can we now start counting numbers of hectares under restoration on the ground? I would like to invite other keynote speakers. Of course, this is forest landscape restoration opportunities for young people, so I'm sure everyone is looking forward to hear some of the people who were born after 95 or after 90s, And I'm going to introduce our first keynote speaker. She's called Honorine Uwase Hirwa. Is Miss Earth Rwanda, National Director and the CEO at Impinga Nzima. She's the AFR ambassador, founder of the Rwanda and East Africa Youth AFR movement, and initiator of the campaign We Do Not Want to Inherit Degraded Lands, which was presented and discussed about in AFR100 meeting in Niger in 2017. So far, 30 schools and more than 15,000 young people are involved in the campaign. Similar youth-driven commitments action are also taking place in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Burundi, South Sudan, under the ESC led and involved by Honorine. Please welcome Ms. Honorine.
All right, hi everybody. Good afternoon. Am I the only one who is loud, or I can't? Okay, so thank you, Charles, for welcoming me and for the very long presentation. But as he said, I'm West State Governor, and definitely I was born after 95. I'm 21 years old. And for the best of my presentation, I think I would love to first give a background of how I ended up doing what I'm doing today. So I basically don't have a background into environmental protection, or I wasn't even raised in the in the rural areas. But what pulled me to get into this sector, environmental protection sector, it's the need in the community. And the need definitely developed the passion, which ended up being my profession. So this is for young people who might be, of course, following us online, of how I ended up in here. So, and we created this movement with the support of IUC and AFR Youth Movement in Rwanda. So, we are here to talk about, of course, the future of AFR100. And the future, of course, is in the hands of young people, rising generations. And, yeah. And here's the content of my presentation. Where it all started, of course, that was in 2011. Well, the leaders of the countries of this world came together to pledge to restore 100 million hectares by 2020 of degraded and deforested land, and 350 million hectares by 2030. So definitely with the AFR100, that was in 2015. And then the government of Rwanda pledged to restore 2 million hectares. What does that mean for Rwanda to restore 2 million hectares? Basically, our country, Rwanda, is only 338 square kilometer, which is equivalent to 2 million alone hectares. That is almost the whole country that is supposed to be placed under restoration. And the youth in Rwanda, they are more than half of the population of the Rwanda is definitely young people. And there is no way we can achieve to restore these 2 million hectares without involving the highest population in Rwanda. And so IEC and I, we initiated this movement, AFR Youth Movement, so as to make sure that we involve young people into this movement, into this action. And the intention definitely is to raise awareness on sustainable management of our forests, but also to advocate for youth involvement, youth inclusion in decision-making, in practical activities on the ground, but also to make sure that we invite both public and private sectors to reverse land degradation. And of course, our vision is to build a robust wide movement across Africa to make sure that we tackle this climate change crisis. So how do we do what we do? The first thing, we believe that what one needs to do something, it's the knowledge. How do people know very well about the challenges in the ground? So that's why we invest a lot into the trainings and workshops. You can see the pictures. And then we also make sure that we invite these young people to implement whatever that they have learned into the workshop. That is in the active participation. And next, we send these people to be the advocates of whatever that they learned and whatever that they do on the ground. We see there they are doing their demo, trying to call up people that our forest definitely is our future. And here they're playing their sketch. Actually, we do an interscholar how do we call this? Interscholar exchange. One school to motivate or inspire or empower or even create another movement into another school. Here we are doing actually two campaigns at the same time. We do not want to inherit degraded land. That's the first campaign. And the second campaign is Race to Restore. So these are the winners of our Race to Restore, both women and men. All young people, to make sure that we develop their talent, but also we develop these talents so as to turn them into AFR youth ambassadors. And definitely our goal is to empower youth to be at the forefront of economic development, and then to make sure that everything turns out to be a business, be it tree nurseries, be it flutes, be it any other things that can come out the tree nursery, the revenues that they get from the tree nurseries, that they also get some personal and community achievements. So here we will training young people in the tree nursery management and restoration. And then what is the progress and the success story? Definitely it's, you can all read about it. 30 schools already involved. More than 15,000 young people are involved into this activity. But also we have the school land as our pilot for restoration. Those are the numbers of seedlings that were planted so far. And definitely similar youth-driven commitments are also happening in other East African countries. That is in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, plus actually Ethiopia, which is not in East Africa, but also which joined us in the launching of the East African Youth AFR movement. All right. And then these are other activities that we are involved in, protecting our riverbanks and greening Kigali city. Those are the youth that are driving it. And then what is our motives? Why do we do what we do? The first thing is that we do not want to inherit degraded land. And definitely whatever that we're doing today, it's our contribution to the kind of world, to the kind of Africa, to the kind of Rwanda, to the kind of continent we want to inherit to our descendants. Otherwise, of course, our next generation will suffer from all the distractions, environmental distractions that are happening. And the thing is, we want to keep the smile of those young two kids, but also to erase the hunger in the eyes of some of our Central and African countries. Because I believe that every sector, forests, the sectors around the forest sector influence the forest sector, and also the forest sector influence other sectors. Here are the challenges we have in Rwanda, particularly in Rwanda. I don't know about Africa, but these are the things we have in Rwanda. And this is our motive to why we are running this movement. And it's young people who should drive this. So the way forward, we need to take ownership. There is a lot of tasks still to be run. So, and also to mainstream environmental issues into school curricula with all the schools that we have in Rwanda, and all the numbers and the number of students and teachers. But also we need to decentralize youth structures from national level to cell level, village level. But also to establish a youth African AFR100 movement or forum. All right, what's the gap? The gap is definitely young people are not yet involved because one, the knowledge might not be shared very clearly, very well, or in a way that might attract them. So we need to keep raising awareness. And definitely once we raise awareness on how AFR100 can be turned into a profitable business, young people will definitely benefit from it. Job opportunities, economic development, and of course, private sector development. Thank you. Please plant for the planet, for health and wealth. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorine, for your nice presentation. Our next speaker is Tangu Timeo. She's the AFR100 initiative focal point in Malawi and works for the Department of Forestry, Ministry of Natural Resources, Energy and Mining. Tangu also worked quite closely with the team that developed Malawi landscape restoration assessment and developed the strategy. And she holds a bachelor degree in forestry from Zuzu University. And I know she's also doing and completing her master's in forestry from Michigan State University. Tangu, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Charles. A disclaimer, I'm not among the youth. My validity expired a few years ago. So I have news for the ones that are still belonging to the category of the youth. It's no longer about the future, it's about today. It's no longer saying, okay, we can leave it up for tomorrow. We don't have, it's not even a choice where I'm coming from. In 2016, the government of Malawi made a pledge of 4.5 million hectares to the African AFR initiative, what we call the AFR100 and the Bonn Challenge. 4.5 million hectares is almost half of the total land size for Malawi. And that was a modest commitment, because when we did the opportunities assessment, we found out that close to 80% of the country is degraded. So if we want to talk about challenges that we're facing right now, we cannot leave it for tomorrow. We have to do something today. Now in the context that we're in, among the strategies that the government has set up to ensure that we get to a point where we're at least producing enough food to feed ourselves, not talking about selling, but at least just producing enough food for us to eat. We need to make sure that nobody gets left behind. Gender comes up a lot in discussion, so we've carried forward women. I'm a woman myself. We've carried forward women in the movements, but not much has been talked about the youth. We have a whole ministry of youth where I come from, but you don't see, for example, in forest management, you will not find youth participating in natural resources management committees. That's something that we need to work on immediately and not even tomorrow. So the role of the youth in AFR in Malawi becomes more significant when you look at our population. 64%, we are 18 million, 64% of that are below 24. And if those 64% are not participating, then what it means is that we are going to continue to have the problems that we are having. Something has to be done to make sure that we turn that. For us to scale up AFR, like I mentioned, we need to make sure that everybody is involved. The youth, the women, the vulnerable groups, the groups of people that have been left behind all along, take part in the conversation. They own what is happening. They understand the benefits that are going to get accrued from forest landscape restoration. For us to change our behaviors. Land use practices that are happening at the moment, they are not sustainable. We need to move from that to start engaging in agricultural practices, forest management activities that are sustainable, that will ensure that the problems that we're facing right now change for us to make progress. And for us to scale up landscape restoration, we also need to, for us to reach out to everybody, we need to expand the communication that we are doing at the moment. Because otherwise, if people don't know what they are going to benefit, they will still say, oh, it's not my responsibility. What is it that I can do to contribute? Everybody has to understand that they have a role to play. Everybody needs to understand that they are going to benefit as individuals, as communities, as business people, and as government sectors. We have said in our strategy that we need to create a restoration generation. The 64% have to be in this movement, like my colleague just said. They are inheriting a terrible future right now. It's up to them to turn that around. If you're only 24, by 2030, you'll still be young. You need to participate in making sure that you get to 2030 in a better environment. We would want to see continued technical assistance. We have received a lot of support from IUCN. We have received a lot of technical support from WRI. We have received a lot of support from NEPAD. We would want to see that continued. We have made a lot of progress in terms of making sure that we have enabling environments in place, even for the private sector to come and invest in FLR. We're talking about creating jobs. You're talking about creating opportunities. If the 64% are not educated, they are not employed, what is it that they do? They'll end up making charcoal, and then the population continues to grow, and the cycle will never end. One exciting thing that has happened in Malawi that I'm very happy to share with you is that government has allocated $7 million this year for the first ever direct investment in FLR to a youth program. So we are implementing a Malawi Youth Forest Restoration Program in all districts in the country, where the youth organized in groups are undertaking forest management activities or land restoration activities, and are getting incentives in terms of wages and bonuses for keeping their forests to continue growing. Last, I don't want to repeat much that has already been said, but we want to think that this program, to go on for 5 years, it will guarantee success for the future. The 64% will be growing. The population of Malawi is going to continue growing, but our land size still remains the same. If the youth are involved, if the women are involved, if everyone takes responsibility, we bring in the private sector to invest in forest landscape restoration, government continues its commitment to restoring the country, we want to think that come 2030, yes, 110 million seems to be a huge ambition, but for us, we want to achieve it by 2030, and we think we are going to achieve it by 2030. We have developed a monitoring framework that by the end of June next year, July, August, we will know how much we'll have achieved in 1 year, and then going on from that, by 2030, we should have an idea of where we are, and we are sure that we'll get to the 4.5 million hectares because of all the energy that we have in the country that's behind the movement to ensure that we have a better country from what we are now. Thank you.
Applause to Tangu. Thank you, thank you. Thank you very much, Tangu, for very powerful remarks. Surprisingly, I was just looking at the numbers a couple of days ago. Out of 1.2 billion of African population, the median age is 19 years old. And I'm thinking 100 million hectares, we need 100 million young people to be involved in restoration efforts. I would like to invite another keynote speaker, Mr. Herman Jody Tabi, who is an award-winning indigenous farmer, green innovator, sustainable landscape management lead, and green innovation for adaptation. Tabi is the founder of GreenAid, 100 million trees for Africa, and currently he's engaging with AFR100 to mobilize young and youth and women across the continent to deliver innovative actions to restore 100 million hectares. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Charles. And thank you, everyone, for inviting us here to come and learn and share. And thank you particularly to GIZ and also Mamadou Diakite for your innovative selection of our work. Thank you very much for that. I wish to start by saying so much has been said about me, but I think it is not about me. It's about what I am doing, and it's about the people for whom I am doing it for. So, this is my work. When I finished university, I decided that university knowledge shouldn't just be for sitting in executive armchairs in the office, because there are also offices in the forest. So I chose the office that's in the forest. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. You can see me, that's my farm, and those are the trees that I have started restoring, First, I want us to be very clear about something, where we come from. The state of youth and forest landscape restoration in Africa. What do we see? Africa's youth population will rise to 1 billion in just a few years, in less than 20 years. That's a reality we must acknowledge. As much as that, we have to acknowledge that over 450 million African youth are aged 15 and 35, like the earlier speaker said, are actually unemployed. That's a key issue to look at. Apart from that, Africa's youth are among the most vulnerable groups affected by climate change, by migration effects, and of course, land degradation. At the same time, we have a very pathetic case that 34,361 young African migrants died in during, and post attempts to migrate across the Mediterranean. To go to where? To either come to Bonn or to come to wherever you might think. But right here in this city, the stress and the strains of this reality are being felt. As such, there is a need for why forest landscape restoration matter. And of course, what are we doing about it? Forest landscape restoration hosts 80% of global biodiversity. That's a reality we must acknowledge. So what about that? Are we allowing our global biodiversity to disappear from our present world, or are we sustaining it for the future generation? That's the question for you to answer. I already answered part of it. So landscape restoration, forest landscape restoration provides both midterm and long-term ecosystem services, opportunities, as well as green growth opportunities, especially for ecosystem services, which you all know. We need water, we need good food, we need safe environments, and so what. What we are doing about it on the field, we have in the last few years attained 80,000 trees planted by me and a few of my friends. And on these 80,000 trees planted, we've attained a 55 hectare of land restored in Cameroon and in Nigeria by me and my friends, or those who believe in the cause that we are actually pursuing. Thank you very much. So in this 55 hectares of land, we had this I want to give you this little background of a community called Tononga in Cameroon. You can check on the Google if that name exists, but of course you check in the village called Mbengui, Momo in Cameroon. This community existed when I was a very young child. As an indigenous person, I used to pass through that track. We had 7 houses which met that community. But when I went back after my university, I discovered there was nobody living in that community again. Why? Their lands were completely degraded. nobody could farm and have any harvest. And I asked myself, why did I go to school? Why did I have knowledge if my knowledge has no productive value for community? And this is where the hell of jobs started. Tononga, Wumdom, Tonoti, and Bomi, these communities are the beneficiary of the 55 hectares of land restored. And of course, in Nigeria, one of my countries, I didn't mention to you, I actually come from both Nigeria and Cameroon. So I'm son of Africa anyway. So 4 hectares restored in 2 communities. Those are Danghunu, doctor. my friend was in Kaduna just recently where one of the biggest meetings was held. And of course, these communities were cited in the discussions there. Danghunu community and Ongwan Kudu community where I have done practical restorations. So in these restoration processes, what have come from there is 14 direct jobs created in the forest landscape restoration by me and those who believe in this cause. Next one, you can see here. Talking about landscape, forest landscape is just not enough because we have a generation coming up that needs to take and inherit the values that we are actually establishing. Otherwise, there is going to be a huge generational gap. And we don't want a generational gap because we want sustainability. Therefore, I chose to look at the most vulnerable group, the children, those coming up and moving into the youth net now. Should they be as vulnerable as we are? No. That's the answer. If so, what should we do? We have to teach them this is land, the beauty of land, the love of land, the compassion for land, what it means to life, what it means to health, what it means to livelihood is the knowledge these children are learning right there as you can see them using their hands and playing and touching land and feeling it and connecting it with the food they eat, with the water they drink, with the coolness of the environment they live in, and of course with the beauty of the trees that grow around them and the crops that their families live on. That's the concept. What about land? Trees don't grow in isolation. Each tree has a seed. So how do we connect seeds with land such that the seeds can grow on these healthy soils? And how can these healthy soils also provide the value that we all need? That's the concept. The third one you can see we are also collecting waste bags and using them as polythenes to make the nurseries for these trees. You can see the bright smiles on the faces of the children. They love it. They like it, and they want it. And of course, many more can love it and want it as well as we move forward with the 100 million trees for Africa. So the whole stretch is going on. You can see the children. Now they're appreciating the nursery, how developed it is. You can see us with some of the seeds that have grown. And they start understanding the connection between the land, the healthiness of that land, the healthiness of that soil, the healthiness of the trees they're planting. You can see the nursery already connected. And a few minutes ago, you saw that video where we were actually motivating the children, connecting them with the trees and the land and everything. How do we connect each way? A human conveyor belt, one person taking one tree and giving to the other, and of course, all of them feeling the beauty and the love of this. So these are some of the results you can see here. Very limited time to speak, but you can also share this afterward, I think. Well, communities are not absent. We try to make sure that for every opportunity, for every knowledge, we share it across communities, because youth don't live in isolation. They live in a community that has leadership. And that's why we are connecting with the traditional leadership in these communities, telling them that this is a new idea that we all have to embrace. It has to connect from the young to the mid-young, the mid-old, and the old, so that each and every one of us is connected to this concept. Of course, the women are not absent. And of course, the young people in schools are not absent. And if anyone who knows northern Nigeria, when you see this category of people coming out of their homes, the comfort of their house, they mean business. These are the big traditional leaders who have the biggest opinions in Nigeria. They are out here. Same thing down in Cameroon. So next slide. Okay. So this is it. And because this concept is actually contagious, it is engulfing almost everyone. That is the Commissioner, Honorable Ambassador Sako of the African Union, standing there and also supporting this mission, of course. Next is Mamadou Diakite's colleague, Estherine, and of course the AU, the Commissioner for Agriculture and Rural Development. And of course, these are the recent activities, because we planted these trees in 8 African countries right now as we move forward to achieve our 100. So this is the community of Tonanga. You can see from over here. This is the landscape restored since these few years that we started. And if you go there now, you can see monkeys already coming back from where they went. This video was already shown. So now, the economic opportunities of landscape is what we want to really be more, we are more fundamental about. And these are the results. We've been able to create these 3 value chains that are now providing some of these foods that the young people who have come back or who are participating in this project are actually using it for to deliver commercial value and social value for themselves. At the same time, we move next. So what about forest landscape restoration? Why should youth engage in forest landscape restoration? This is a question to youth. Keep it very deep in your heart. The next question is, why should you invest in forest land restoration? World Bank, GIZ, and every other partner. Why should you invest? I want to give you a very good reason why you should invest.
Can we come back to that in the panel?
Just a moment, please.
Panel now.
Just a moment, last one. This is the most important of it. We have discovered 30 value chains in forest landscape restoration. We want you to know about those 30 value chains. I'm not going to mention them here. We are currently exploiting 3 value chains and 14 jobs are created. So this mathematics is like this. If 3 value chains created 14 jobs in one region in Cameroon, how many jobs will emerge from 30 value chains? That's a question. On an average of 7 jobs per chain in 30 value chains, therefore, 7 times 30 is equal to 210. If 210 jobs come from 30 value chains in one region, how many jobs will come from 10 regions in Cameroon? Therefore, 210 times 10 will be 2,100 jobs. If this is replicated in 55 African countries, therefore we have 2,100 times 55, which is equal to 117,600 jobs. And if we grow this tenfold, assuming with the collaboration and the commitment and energy that we need to realize this, we get threefold this in 12 years' time. When SDGs will be evaluated, we are going to have 117,600 times 3. That will be 352,800 jobs. Therefore, by 2030, during the evaluation of the SDGs, AFR100 can proudly stand here, Mamadou Diakite, with a very big plaque and say, we have created 352,800 pro-youth jobs from the forest landscape restoration.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
But I think the rest maybe from the...
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much. A round of applause again to Mr. Aman for the very nice presentation. And I know why. People like numbers. Even those who didn't make it for mathematics in secondary, they like seeing numbers. Thank you very much, our very inspiring speakers. And this shows me that there is a hope. There is already opportunities for achieving 1,100,000 hectares by 2030. I would like to move to the next interesting section of this session. I would invite a couple of people on the panel who are going to share more of what they are doing. And allow me to call Fatou Jeng. Fatou Jeng is the country and program coordinator. A round of applause, please. And you can please come to the panel. And Fatou is the country and program coordinator for Plant for the Planet program in Gambia. I would also like to invite Mr. Ude, who is the member of the global executive team of Plant for the Planet from Nigeria. The next is Tangu Isabel Timeo, who is the Africa 100 focal point from Malawi. I would like to invite Paola Agostini, who is the lead natural resource management specialist from the World Bank. And finally, I would like to invite Honorine Uwase Hirwa, who is the AFR Young Ambassador. And of course, Mr. Haman Joda Tabi, the founder of Greenaid 100 Million Trees. Can I kindly ask you to sit that side?
No problem. Thank you.
So that I can... I hope, yes, we have enough chairs. I'm happy to give over mine, obviously. I thought I have enough, but otherwise I would need to stand here. Thank you very much, distinguished panelists. We appreciate your time and we appreciate your inspirational talk to this very beautiful audience. I'd like to start this question to a very passionate, a very engaged Fatu from Gambia. Fatu, we are talking about opportunities for young people in forest landscape restoration, and you are leading in Gambia a very great initiative called Plant for the Planet. Tell us, what is the situation in Gambia? What is firing young people to plant trees? And where do you see opportunities? Probably every one of the speakers could take 2 minutes to speak and respond to some of these questions, and then we'll turn to the panel to ask you back some questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, moderator. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, all protocols duly observed. As he rightly mentioned, my name is Fatou Dieng, Country and Program Coordinator of Plant for the Planet International, which is a global organization or movement that has around 70,000 climate justice ambassadors all over the world. This is aimed at playing our role in mitigating climate change as well as other environmental hazards that are really affecting us. So as the country or program coordinator in the Gambia, I've organized academies, that is Plant for the Planet academies, which targets primary school students and junior school students from all over the Gambia to be trained about issues that have to do with our environment, particularly climate change and tree planting, which is something very key and pivotal as far as we're talking about this topic, as well as how they as young people can engage stakeholders such as the government, other political leaders, as well as other influential people for them to also play their part in mitigating climate change as well as planting trees. So we have trained over 250 students from the Gambia, in which we're planning to have more young people in the Gambia trained from now to the coming years. And we have also planted trees as part of the 1 trillion tree campaign of Plant for the Planet. So what we're doing as a global movement, Plant for the Planet, is to make sure that we have 1 trillion trees planted. And we've already have 15 billion trees, over 15 billion trees that have been planted all over the world. And this is part of our the global campaign to also mitigate issues that have to do with our environment. And we're very, very happy to also have other people join us, because we feel that this is something that everyone or every individual should take up as an initiative to play their respective or individual role as far as carbon dioxide emission is concerned, as well as the absorption, which we feel that tree planting is one of the most cheap, that is the cheapest, most affordable, as well as a foolproof method in absorbing carbon dioxide.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I would like to turn to Mr. Ude, and Ude and Fatu are very much linked, because Ude sits on the executive board of the Plant for the Planet at the global level. But also Ude has a very interesting profile, because he also a private investor. He looks at his own investments, but also he's actually in the energy sector. So all those things combined, Mr. Ude, looking back to, you are still young and you are very much passionate about this Plant for the Planet. What drives your passion? And how do you translate and transmit and transfer your knowledge to younger people below your age?
Yeah, it's very easy to find motivation in this fair. For us at Plan for the Planet, we find ourselves as young people who hold the future for generations unborn. We've looked at what has happened in the years past where the older generation had opportunities to save our planet for these catastrophic consequences of climate change and land degradation, and it never happened. We are here in this space occupying it now that we have the opportunity. It is the easiest motivation for us to go ahead, take the bull by the horn and do the much we can to restore lands and also to plant trees. In the years that have gone past, like Fatou said, we've planted over 15 billion trees. And earlier this year, we launched an ambitious afforestation project, the most ambitious globally, to plant 1 trillion trees by 2030. For this, we are not doing it alone. We are doing it with all the tree planting organizations in the world. It's an open space for everyone to join our platform, trilliontreescampaign.org. You could register your trees. You could have your organizations on there, have access to financing, which is very key. It's something that I find very important when you talk about young people being in this fair, especially in a continent like Africa. We have issues about people having access to land, having access to finances, but we tried to cluster all these barriers that young people face in accessing financing for restoration and accessing land. We try to cluster them together to find innovative solutions to them. So what we've done is to have this platform where everybody can engage as a global common. You could just, because also when you look around, you find a lot of organizations don't have websites. They don't have where to showcase their work. They don't have opportunities to talk about what they are doing. We've provided this platform where you could just register your organization and say you are planting these trees in so place, and you need funding. Some organizations plant a tree for €1 per tree like we do. Some also have €20 per tree. It depends on the areas and the costs they are looking at. So once you're on our platform, donations can come to you straight to your organization. All you need to do is to put in the details there, and donations can come to you, to your organization straight. The platform just allows you to present it to a global audience where they can find it, and it's very visible for opportunities to engage. I think that's one thing we've done for young people that we're very proud of, and just recently also we launched a mobile app for that Trillion Trees campaign, which is accessible for now, I think, on iPhone. We would still do more going forward to have it on both Android and every other means, so you could plant on the go and do whatever you want. You can access also your trees, which is very key for donors. They want to see this transparency, that how are the trees planted, can they access it from where they are. Of course, for us at Plan for the Planet, once you plant a tree with us, you can see it's geospatially mapped, so you can see how it's growing, you can find updates. You could just put even notification on your app to update you on the centimeters, how it's doing, where it is, and it's quite interesting, and we are very happy to provide this for young people.
That's very, very interesting, and obviously when you talk about technology, you already have the young people in your hands, and you got that right. And you talked about something interesting, and I want to talk to Paula. And I know Paula is very passionate about restoration, actually. I was with Paula on one course, which is interesting. And Paula, from the World Bank point of view, the bank is investing strongly in food, energy, water nexus, and getting interest in creating jobs for young people. And I wanted to hear from your perspective, from an investment point of view, and from the World Bank point of view, where do you see opportunities for young people in landscape restoration?
Thank you very much. Let me start by echoing the words of Karen Kemper, who was in the plenary, and she mentioned the importance of natural capital. But she also stressed that the wealth of a nation is made of three things: human capital, natural capital, and produced capital. So natural capital, we know, it's what we're talking about, is the landscape. But the human capital is our youth. So if we want a country to grow in its wealth, we need to invest in the youth. And if we both invest in the youth and in the landscape together, then we're really going to achieve much more. So let me give you a few examples of what the World Bank is doing, especially in Africa, given that this session is about Africa. So in Ethiopia, we have a big investment on sustainable land management, which also deals with land certification. Land security is fundamental to really invest in your land. And one of the innovations that we have done is to actually discuss with the government the possibility of giving land to the youth, a land that is public land, and that they would restore into productive and healthy landscape. So youth that didn't have any land in their own now have land, and they are going to work on it and restore it. This has been extremely successful, and we are going to replicate that in our countries. But Ethiopia is not the only country where we are trying to work with the youth. I'm just coming back from Burundi. I just arrived this morning from Burundi. And in Burundi, for example, we are working, we have a program that is, again, doing some work on terracing and a lot of work on improving the agriculture to make it more resilient and more nutrition-oriented. Anyway, we are doing farmer field schools. So we're going to have some special farmers field school for the youth, because the youth have a different way of learning and their questions and faster, and that's a small change, but it is going to be really important, having farmers field school for the youth. At the same time, again in Burundi, around the protected area in Bururi, we have been working a lot with Batwa people, indigenous people, so that, and especially with the youth group of indigenous people, so that they can be hired by the protected area. And part of the salary that they gain is going to be kept in a fund for community fund, and with that money, in only 1 year, the youth were able to buy land in Burundi for the first time. So it's combining the work on protected area with this savings and having access finally to land for a group of indigenous people that it's normally landless in a country like Burundi, who is really motivating them to work on conservation and restoration and shade-grown coffee around the protected area. The last example I want to give is in Mozambique. In Mozambique, they were really looking for a new young group of people that will be the leaders of the future on conservation. And we put them in touch with this fantastic school called the Africa Leadership Academy, which is based very close to Johannesburg, that is really forming the leaders of the future, people with the spirit of entrepreneurship, with a strong ethic, that are going to work, in this case, in conservation. So it's really trying to combine the human capital aspect with the productive landscape aspects, and also making sure that all this business opportunity that my friends were talking about are there and are a very important incentive for the people, for the young people, to continue to stay in their land and making it into making a productive life out of their land and keep restoring it.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that. And let me follow up on what you mentioned on creating jobs for young people and linking this to some of the session here we are having, where people are saying that actually young people are not interested in agriculture. Young people don't have the knowledge to do restoration. They are moving to the city from the rural area. Already it has made mention the migration issue. And I want to go back to Tangu. Malawi have put in place a $7 million fund to create restoration movement for young people in Malawi. How are you getting there? Because is that assumption correct, that young people don't want to be involved? What is the missing link so that this movement can grow to achieve the Malawi restoration target of 4.5 million?
Thank you, Charles. They were left out. They have been left out the same way women have been left out in natural resources management in Malawi. So we have had maybe 10 years concentrated on ensuring that women are empowered, women get involved, women participate in natural resources management. The youth had been left out. So we have had these youth groups in communities doing everything else but not concentrating on natural resources management. It's now then we say, oh, we have 80% of the country degraded. Who is there to restore this land? The women and the men that are in the natural resources management committees are 80, they are 60, they are 70. What happens in 10 years? That's when we're saying, let's have this fund as a deliberate effort to make sure that they are not left behind. So we are trying to make sure that through communication, we get to them as well. Whether we have to come up with songs in hip hop to reach out, I think at this point we are going to do that. Whether we'll have to have drama groups, at this point we'll have to do that because the 64% cannot be left behind. And 4.5 million hectares by 2030, we don't have time. So they have to be up on the road and running. That's why when the president made this offer to say, so you have launched the strategy in 2017, what are you going to do to implement it? The first thing we said is that before we go outside the country to ask for money, can we organize ourselves and put money where our mouth is? So they said, we'll give you money. And we got $7 million as a challenge. Actually, the Minister of Finance told me in my face to say, this is a challenge to you to show what you can do with the 64% of the people in 1 year. The $7 million is not for 2 years, it's for 1 year. So we are planting 25,000 hectares this year across the country, and we are managing 100,000 hectares of natural regeneration management. Because what we've noticed is that if we just assist the regenerants of our indigenous forests, they actually grow faster than the planted trees. So in 7 years, in 5 years, you can have a regenerated forest instead of just depending on seedlings that you put on the ground. So it's a challenge for us. By June next year, the president is going to look in my face and say, where is the 125,000 hectares? So the 64% have to be convinced that there is something that they are going to get and benefit out of this. For more information, we have a brief that we can share on the program specifically if you want to have more information.
Thank you, Tangu. That's very inspiring. And I know we don't have, thank you. And obviously, I'm just going towards the end and we don't have enough time for everyone to speak. But we are already seeing a growing movement. And we heard from our friend Ude. We heard also from my friend here, Joda, from Fatu, from Honorine. Africa 100 initiative targets to restore 100 million hectares by 2030. And already young people can do that. And I would like to throw a question to the panelists, and probably two of you will speak. What can we do to make this Africa movement vibrant, operational, innovative, and life-changing for this continent? I will need two people to speak, and probably allow me to give some time to my friend here, who is talking about a very interesting numbers of jobs created and value chains, transforming, very inspiring. But how do we do that? What do you see? Where do we need to put efforts to create this strong African movement?
Okay. Should I speak first? Okay. I am afraid...
You have only 1 minute.
Thank you. If you have ever had a chicken at home, you know what or how chickens behave when you throw something to them. So we need incentives that are appealing, incentives that are actually incentives that fall within the prism of good governance that guarantee strong institutions that have value for the rule of law, integrity of the people, equality, the absence of corruption. That's at the governance level. But in terms of engaging individuals, it is something more than just driving campaigns on social media or doing allo, allo, allo on the streets, as our governments have been doing. We can solve today's problems with the solutions of yesterday. That's what I'm trying to say. So what are the solutions? You look at the innovativeness of the value chains that exist in forest landscape restorations. Identify these various value chains, country by country. Identify those who have this passion for this field and put them ahead to speak to those that will be, or the potential followers, or potential converters or convertees, as the religious people would say. If you do this, by also taking, let me say this very frankly, we are too much about those who speak a lot than too much about those who do much. Identify those who are doing the jobs on the field, driving the social and the commercial value that is touching the people's life. Let these people talk to those you want them to be involved.
Thank you very much.
They know how to do it. And I can tell you, we have these secrets, we have these innovations to share with the governments.
Very good.
Talk to us, we'll give you.
Let's hear one more panelist, and I see between Fatu and the Honorine, and probably let's me give 30 seconds to Honorine and 30 seconds to Fatu. and how do we put fire, I like the word, put fire out to the continent to create this movement among young people?
Thanks a lot. And my strategy is always to make sure that young people have the right knowledge, the right finances, and of course, the right support from both the government but also other organizations that are ready to support us. So what I would suggest to make this movement very vibrant, the African Youth FRL movement, is to make sure that we put much focus on, yes, pledging the hectares that should be restored, but also putting much focus on the targeted number of people that we need to bring into this movement. We say we at least need by 2030 that we're going to be having at least 100,000 youth ambassadors, youth FRL ambassadors. We equip young people, we entrust them to come in. And this is what I always say that, which always confuses me. When we are in the restaurant, most of the people are going to be speaking about the Black Friday or maybe the Beyonce concert, but rarely will we be speaking about the forest landscape restorations. How can we make this appealing, interesting to young people? That is basically making sure that we involve influential people into this sector. People that people follow a lot, and so that they can transmit the message.
Fatu?
Thank you very much. Just to take it up from where she stopped, because that was where I was basically going to. We all understand that young people have played or are playing a very vibrant and proactive role in making sure that our landscape is restored. And then the AFR100 can be restored if we have young people put in the front line, if they are actively put in the front line. And she made mention that we should have basically influential people and to come on board and then share with their network. I mean, have commitments or challenges that we should do this, and then their networks can follow or share from this. I mean, if we use influential people to share this information with them, they also use their contacts, their networks to also disseminate this. For example, we have artists, we have musicians, we have footballers, we have political leaders, etc. And then we also have to understand that the government cannot do all this alone. We also have private companies, I mean business companies that can also come on board to also support initiatives that are led by young people, because we have our Trillion campaign, and with the app that we're having young people from different countries, especially Kenya, etc., that have also started this project like this. So if we have business companies, we have key individuals come on board, as well as we have the government and also the young people, I believe we can be able to achieve that. But if we want to wait on only one side, it's going to be a problem for us as young people.
Thank you. A round of applause to the very, very inspiring panelists. And I would like to, as we give you another round of applause to the panelists, to probably proceed to their seats. And I would call Heiko to come and close this particular session. And as he stepped forward, Heiko is a lawyer by training, but currently heads the Division of Rural Development, Land Rights, Forest and Animal Husbandry in the German Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, as known as BMZ. Heiko, welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much, Charles, and thank you all that you stayed here. I think it was really inspiring. I learned a lot, but it's impossible for me to wrap up all what we learned all over the day. But I think it was really very interesting to listen to the youth. I think it's very, very important to talk to the youth and to listen to the youth, because I think all over the day we learned how much you will be suffering from what we, the old ones, are doing badly. I think the State Secretary, very clearly mentioned how we are still far away from our goals and targets. So you have to live with all these problems, but you're also part of the solutions. And I was really very much impressed by what I just learned from you. I think it's great. You have so many good ideas. In the digital world, of course, and what was new to me is that we have to go for hip-hop for making it more popular. But I think Felix, in his presentation, showed very nicely what you can do with an attractive app. I think that is something that could be part of the solution. We learned a lot about the different examples in all your countries, what you can do with digital solutions. I think that is part of the solution. Knowledge, I think we will always agree, and so there are many different fields. Black Friday, I think even when you're talking about Black Friday and you look at your search machine, you can use also, for example, Ecosia, where you can, at the same time when you're spending time on your search machine, you can do something for reforestation and afforestation. So I think there are also ways how you can link it, and this hopefully will also be then a subject of your discussion in your restaurant. So I think we learned a lot, and Germany is very much involved. We are very much engaged and committed, both Ministry of Environment and Ministry for Development Cooperation, and we work very closely together. We learned about the Bonn Challenge. We have AFR100, where our ministry is involved. We are, for example, also involved in technical and vocational education and training. I think you mentioned that you have to start with the young kids, but I think this holds on. I think what was also very interesting for me that you have this holistic approach. You were talking not only about trees, you were also talking about job opportunities. You were talking about the business opportunities that we have to create. I think attractive landscape are very necessary, and they are attractive when you have trees in the landscapes. But of course, they have to be attractive also for the young people. We were talking about migration to these bigger cities. So you have to find ways to make the landscapes attractive, and jobs, I think, is one of the fields that are absolutely crucial. Otherwise, there's no way to stay in the rural areas. So vocational training is one of the areas where we are active. We have the One World, No Hunger initiative, where we are very much engaged as German Development Cooperation Ministry. I think we have a budget of 1.5 billion euros per year. So this is really something where we can do really something with it. But I'm really happy and glad to see that I don't have to preach to you. I think you are part of the solutions, and that is what is necessary. And you have to be engaged and committed also in many other fora. You have to really have a strong voice when you are talking to your governments. It's nice to hear that you are already talking to your presidents and ministers of finance, and you get funding for all these efforts. So I think this is the way to continue. And you can even from time to time learn from the experience of others. I was also very much impressed today to listen to Jakuba Sawadogo and Tony Rinaldo. So there are so many experiences abroad. So I think there's a lot that we can take on board. And I think that is the spirit. I'm definitely not part of the young generation, but of the restoration generation. And I think this is what brings us together. Thank you very much and have a nice evening.
Thank you very much, Rico, for the very, very inspiring. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of this side event, and I would like to thank you. There's a call to AFR100 Secretariat to continue thinking about using the hip hop and Race to Restore and all other innovative ways to create movements. There's a whole interesting and inspiring opportunities here to create jobs from all these value chains that were presented. There's an opportunity to use technology to attract more young people, but also there's an opportunity for countries that committed to the AFR100 to mobilize domestic resources to engage young people. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and have a very good evening. A round of applause to everyone. Thank you.